This makeover is not for the faint of heart. I found this desk on Facebook Marketplace for $50 and I'm going to show you how to turn it around. Welcome to part 5 of refinishing this presidential desk, our dining room to office conversion. We are almost finished up with this office and I'm so excited because this desk has taken almost a month because of the steps involved. When we first got this massive beast into our garage, we knew that we needed to take off all the hardware, and this is where I love involving the kids. They can learn how to use simple tools like screwdrivers and putty knives to get the little nails out. You can't start cleaning your piece until you have these off because of the junk that built up behind. I always try and save the original hardware, but these were in really bad shape and a lot of them were broken. Now, because I had extra hands to help, I'm using 2 different cleaners. In the white and blue bottle, I have a TSP solution. It comes in a concentrate and you add water to it and it degreases the piece completely. It's awesome. The other one is Crud Cutter and it's degreaser, deglosser, and it's also equally as great about getting all the grossness off. The reason why you clean it before you even start sanding is because if you sand with varnish and old cleaning products that have been on the wood for a long time, it's going to put those into the grooves, into the wood, and it's going to make your bonding with your shellac primer and your paint, it's not going to be great because you're going to have all that product and varnish and grossness pushed into the wood grain, and it's just going to make it impossible to cling to. Sander that I love using as my surf prep, but I do prefer my DeWalt, especially when it comes to heavy duty stuff. But this one seemed to work because I was using an 80 to 100 grit. It had water damage at the top, and so to try and get that out, I sanded really deep. But guess what? Underneath that was basically like particle board paper. It was awful. It just gets all fuzzy when you sand all the way through the veneer. The rest of it was wood, and so sanding a lot of the damage out just took a little bit of contouring. The pads on this sander work really well to go around curves, but a lot of the damage and the nicks and cracks came out with the sanding. The rest of them I'm going to fill. Now, if you follow me on Instagram at all, you will have seen a reel where I try to strip this leather. I don't know what I was thinking. I thought maybe it would just like pull the whole thing up. I didn't really know how to get it off. I've never worked with an inlay like this before. Well, here's how you actually get it off. You use a heat gun, or in my case, I don't have one, so I have a blow dryer, and you just use a putty knife and stick it underneath as that glue is coming off. Then I used Goof Off to get the rest of it off. I used a sander to sand down the rest of it. It's just a little fuzzy in the middle. It's almost like a cardboard paper bag, but I sanded it smooth enough to where I knew that the primer would stick. As I moved through sanding the rest of the piece, I recognized that there was little tiny holes everywhere, which those bug the crud out of me, and so I knew I was going to have to fill those and fill the nail holes. I used to fill nail holes with just sticking a bunch of wood putty in there, but it really has trouble drying and it can crack over time, so this is my new fix. I get these wooden dowels from like the craft store, and they last forever because you just clip off little tiny bits. They kind of go flying, so be careful while you're clipping them, and you stick them right down into the hole with some wood glue, and then you can wood putty over that. For all the holes around the piece, and let me tell you, there was many, including on the really fine detail part on the corners, I used wood filler, which is just dry Dex. It goes on pink and then it dries to white, and so that's how you know when it's dry. And I went through and used my finger and just pushed them into each hole and just wiped them over it, and then I went through with the sander. This stuff is really easy to sand, and so I prefer it over Bondo wood repair, especially when I have a ton of places to fill. It's not so toxic and it dries really fast. Once all the prep work's done, I mean like all of the prep work, the sanding, everything, I go back through and I clean my piece again, this time just with the TSP solution to make sure I get off any last bit of that gloss that's on there that's not going to make the paint apply and bond. Now, because I knew this thing was a lot of veneer, I don't like to leave water on the surface, and so I wipe it clean right away so that none of the water can seep in and create some of those pockets like on the top where it caused the veneer to swell. For darker colors like greens, blacks, grays, all that stuff, I like to use a clear primer and not the white primer. And so as I went through and I make sure that I checked all my holes, make sure everything was filled, I use clear primer and I paint it on, or I roll it on. A lot of this had a ton of details on it, and so I could have sprayed, but this clear primer is really like It's pretty thick, and so it does not go through a sprayer well. So I used a roller for the majority of it. This is what you want before you prime it. You want all the shine to be gone. So this is why we cleaned it, and then we scuff sanded it, and then we filled it, and we cleaned it again with TSP. So we're ready to prime. In the meantime, while I'm finishing priming this piece, I had a problem with the paints, and so I wanted to use this custom color by Dixie Belle's paints with collard greens and evergreen. I had taken a poll on my Instagram, and that's what everybody loved, and that's the color that I love, and so I wanted to paint the whole desk in that. Here's the problem. The built-ins in the office and all the wainscoting was going to be painted in more of a semi-gloss enamel, not a chalk paint. I did not want to put chalk paint on that. So because of that, I wanted to buy it in an enamel, and I wanted Sherwin-Williams to match it. So they did. I brought it. They have this gun. They can read the color as well. When I went to put it on the piece, it didn't match exactly. And so I had a dilemma of, do I paint this with the enamel and furniture paint it like I know how, or do I stick with my chalk paint? I decided to go with the enamel so that it would match the wainscoting and the built-ins. And you'll see where I ran into some problems. This sound is exactly how you want it to be when your primer is dry. It's just sticky enough. Here's my dilemma. That's the color of the semi-gloss that I had matched to this, and it doesn't totally match. It's probably because I got it in a semi-gloss. Dang it. They're close, but this is like more of the green I wanted, but I like that one too. What would you do? So close. Here's what I know about chalk and mineral paints. They've had no problems for me painting in the winter, painting in the summer. This was August. This was very hot in Charlotte, and so using an enamel outside didn't go so well. It went fine on the body of the piece. It went on gorgeous. I used my Flexio 5000. I didn't have to thin it at all. So this enamel was awesome. But on the top, it was so tacky. It wouldn't dry. Even after 24 hours, it would not dry. You could stick your finger in it and your fingerprint would stay there. So it was just nasty, and I couldn't figure out why the tackiness was happening other than how humid it was. And so we decided to move the desk inside after I had gotten just one coat on it. When you are using a spray gun to do pieces like this, you're going to want to tilt it up and down depending on where your seam is, because as if I tilted it down the whole time, I would miss right under the lip of all the details. So as I'm going through really methodically, going up and down, over and across to make sure that I get every single seam from bottom and also top. In my Amazon storefront, if you guys want to start with a spray and you don't know where to start with a cheap one. There's one by HomeRite that's in my Amazon storefront, and you can see it in the description below, and it's really, really cheap, and it's really high powered. It's not like this Flexio, but it's awesome. Alright, after letting this sit for seriously 48 hours, we brought it inside. They almost killed my lamp that I got for $50 on Facebook Marketplace. I'm telling you guys, it's also in my Amazon store. That thing is $175 on Amazon, and I scored. It was brand new in box. Once I got it inside, I buffed down the top and I sprayed it again. It still didn't dry. It still felt tacky. I don't know if it was because it's on the surface, because it's humid, who knows, but I just decided, you know what, if I'm going to move on from this and figure this out, sides look great, let's paint the chalk paint on the top. I added a little bit more collard greens to it to darken it up a little bit, and I had to strip the top. This is not the first time I'm going to have to strip the top, so stay tuned. I'm using Green Ease for this. You'll see how easy it pulls enamel up. It's also non-toxic, so I could use it inside with no mask, and it was great. It scrapes right off, and then it comes with a finishing cleanser. So I know it's kind of expensive, but it comes with the spray that you need to clean up afterward. So a lot of the other strippers don't. You have to buy a separate product to get them totally off, but this you can just throw away in the trash because it's eco-friendly, soy-based, and it's not going to kill you. There was something in the enamel, I swear, that was making it tacky. So my Bin Zinswer Shellac primer is my go-to for sealing every issue in and making sure that no issues come up through the veneer. I rolled the shellac on and painted some of it, so I went through with just a 220 grit just to smooth it all down. I went through with my vacuum to clean it up. I didn't feel like taping because I honestly had already taped this thing so many times, and so I just went through and made sure that I tried not to get it on the inserts where I was going to put something very special. I went through with my chalk paint with my Zibra brushes. I misted the surface just a little bit to keep the working ability of it a little bit moist. It just spreads a lot better. Once I got that first coat done, I did a little bit of sanding on it and then I put another coat. In the meantime, my knobs came. These are also in my Amazon store for the office renovation. I got these for the built-ins and for the desk. These are the 5-inch pulls. And so I have this awesome thing called the Craig Jig. It's like cabinet hardware jig. And I can use it on pieces like this, even if they have a lip around it. I just put some tape behind it. And you can measure exactly where you need to, and you drill right in with your pilot holes, and then your knobs go on flawlessly. Because the outside was done and it was fully cured, it had been like about a week, I went through with some dark brown wax by Dixie Belle, and this wax goes on so beautifully, you guys, just straight from the can with a waxing brush. I got it into every little nook and cranny and then went over it with 00 steel wool to wipe it off. It doesn't take the paint off, it's a higher grit steel wool, but it just gets the wax off the surface of it and lets it stay in the groove. So you can take as much off as you want and get in there a little bit better, or you can leave it and just create more of a shaded look. Especially on pieces like this that have so much detail on them, it's really fun to make those leaves pop, the details at the top pop, and so I put this dark wax everywhere except for the very top because we're going to do something totally different with that. The best part about wax is that it's really easy. If you mess up or make a mistake, you can always get it off. You use min wax with just a rag or shop cloth, and you go through and you can wipe it off in the areas that you don't want it, or if you accidentally put it on there. The steel wool gets off the majority of it. So I hope you guys love this so far. Now this video is long enough, and so I'm going to show you in the next video that's coming very soon my epoxy nightmare. So we're going to work on the top with some scripture and Bible pages. I hope you guys love this. Drop me a comment below.